Hello again, everyone. This is SCLC Today TV. I'm your host, Maynard Eaton. Now, say hello to SCLC President and CEO, Dr. Charles Steele Jr. Dr. Steele, you'll be saying hello to a crowd of folks this weekend at the King Center for the John Lewis Voter Advancement Bill votercade. What's on your mind to tell these folks?
Well, first of all, Maynard, you know my position. First of all, and we addressed some of the cabinet members, President Biden, several weeks ago via Zoom, that we're in favor of restoring the 1965 Voter Rights Act with expansion. But as you know, H.R. 1 and H.R. 4 both is passed the House and running into some problems in the Senate. But you do have Senate Bill 1. What's the difference is like Senate Bill 1, H.R. 1, H.R. 4. If you don't have pre-clearance in either one of the bills, then we are going to resume and be exactly where we are and where we returned to 8 years ago when Section 4 and Section 5 was gutted by the U.S. Supreme Court. And that goes back to Shelby versus Holder, coming out of Shelby County, Alabama, right next to Jefferson County in Birmingham. So the civil rights movement has gone full circle. But we'll be speaking at the King Center along with Ms. Helen Butler, who's a champion in her own right in dealing with voters, registration, education, and the right to vote.
Work very closely with Dr. Joseph Lowery, our former president, correct?
Work very close with Dr. Joseph Lowery. And his cliche, Mr. Eden, is that voting is an obligation and a right, a human right, a civil right, in order for people to participate. That's Dr. Joseph Lowery. And Ms. Butler worked very close with Dr. Lowery. And I'll be there at the King Center. And there'll be some advancements along those same lines in Selma, Alabama. I know none other than Attorney Barbara Arnwine will be doing some things around the Selma movement, and then we're here in Atlanta at the King Center. Martin Luther King III is scheduled to be there along with his sister, Dr. Bernice King, and representation from C.T. Vivian family. Also, Reverend Abernathy family will be represented. So we will just honor that people understand the necessity of keeping the right to vote in front of our daily activities. It is a necessity. It is a right. It is an emergency that we educate our people, first of all, and let them know that we can't continue to be reactive. We have to be proactive. This happened 8 years ago. You know, we should have filled the streets up right there in Washington, D.C., in front of the U.S. Supreme Court 8 years ago, June the 25th, 2013. We were there. Only 50 to 60 of us are Mr. Eden.
But Dr. Steele, correct me if I'm wrong, for our Alabama viewers, this Saturday, the same will be happening in Montgomery, as I understand it. True, a similar votercade sort of turnout.
Yes, it's going to be a votercade, and I'm splitting myself, and I'm not precise on actually the activities from Selma to Montgomery. But yeah, with Senator Hank Sanders, Attorney Barbara Arnwine, and Attorney Fire Rose, along with others. I don't know the agenda, but I do know simultaneously we'll be doing the same thing at the King Center, Selma to Montgomery.
Let's change the subject just a little bit. Seemingly, the country's relaxing its pandemic mode. Some suggest COVID-19 is past. Masks are coming off. Are we back to quote-unquote normal yet, you think? Or a little too soon?
I would say we must be very cautious in terms of trying to get the normalcy. You know, it disturbs me that people are willing to put it all on the line without making any sacrifices for your health, for the basic respect of humankind, mankind, womankind, all aspects of human life. And just like what happened in India, they celebrated and wanted normalcy prematurely. It's just like anything else. It's a process. But what disturbs me more than that is that you still have people saying they don't want to get the shot or they don't want to wear the mask. I don't care. I walk every other morning or so with my wife. My wife and I walk a lot. And even though we're outdoors, I have my mask. Occasionally, I take it off, get a deep breath, put it back on. Every time I go into a store or around people in clothes, I'm going to have my mask on. And let me just say this, Mr. Eden, to the general public. This virus is not going to leave us. It's going to be here, just like the flu. And it's first cousin to the flu, just with more in-depthness of making a transition with you prematurely, leaving you from this place called Earth in eternity. So my point being, we must always realize that this virus is serious and it is going to be with us. And it's just like any other enemy. You have to protect yourself.
Very well said. Very well said. Speaking of your wife, this is Teacher Appreciation Week. Your wife is a noted classroom principal, teacher, educator, and so is your daughter. So this must have been a big week for your family, I imagine.
Of course. Yes, my wife, a retired educator, history teacher. My daughter in New Orleans, who taught also here in Atlanta metropolis, in DeKalb County and Douglasville. She loved both of those systems. And now she in New Orleans. And guess what? She loves that system. So I'm saying that she must really be. It's a little
tougher down there, though. It's a little tougher down there in New Orleans. Come on now. She's really working in New Orleans.
It's another culture.
Yeah.
She started off in Alabama, in Oxford. That was a different culture. Coming over to DeKalb was a different culture. Douglasville Georgia was a different culture. And of course, going to New Orleans is most definitely a different culture. But what I admire about the fact of the change with my daughter and her commitment to education is that she adapts. And she has no problems in terms of adapting to the various climates in terms of cultures. And I just give her all of the accolades and the respect for being a committed educator to that degree.
Dr. Steele, you salute a wealth of folks, health workers, all kind of people. But don't you know, being in your home, I know you know how much education has meant to the Black experience, has helped lead us through the classroom to the streets if necessary. It's a major part of who we are, is it not? Our teachers teaching us, leading us.
Absolutely. And what many people don't realize, the teachers of yesteryear, they didn't have the exposure that we have today. Like, I've traveled more than the average person around the world and dealt with many of various cultures around the world. My wife and I both. And the fact being is that is another accessibility and progression that we as African Americans never had the exposure to, particularly our professionals and educators for many of years ago, starting from my being in the first grade all the way to Druid High School and beyond. People did not have the type of exposure that we have today in travel. I didn't know not one Black person that had the ability or the finance or could even, because of the degradation of who we are as a people of color, could even get on an airplane. Let alone talking about going across to Europe or to the continent of Africa or any other place, unless you was in the military. And I'm here to say it's a difference in traveling the world and being in the military than it is as a civilian. But that's the point that I want to leave with, is that I've discovered more through education by traveling than reading any book. The book got me to traveling. The book is a necessity. You got to have the book. And the main book is the Bible. And when you put it all together, you got the basis of the Bible, and then you got the history there, and then you got the history of politics, of government. And that's where I discover in my travel. And then I mesh all of that together with the academic of reading books. I wish you could see back seat of my car now. When I was in Chicago, this particular pastor gave me so many books to read. And all of that is good. And I read 2 or 3 books every other day, or particularly over a week period of time. But the point being, if you don't get that traveling in and study what you have academically prepared yourself for in the classroom and out of the classroom, you have to read, then you have to travel, then you have to build relationships. And see, you can only get so much of that from the academic arena. You got to ask God to give you an anointing. You got to be anointed. And we all can be anointed. It's not that this person got it or that person got it and you don't have it. You got to pray to God and give you the perception and the vision and the discernment to travel the world. Guess what? Many people criticized me several years ago, because I've been to Africa more times, the continent of Africa more times I can count, throughout Europe, throughout South America, all over the world. People always say, Steele, are you tired of traveling now? And they were saying it in such a way, they were trying to belittle the fact that I'm all over the world. What are you doing here in America, in your hometown, in the town that you represent the SCLC in, Atlanta, Georgia, Tuscaloosa, Alabama, state of Alabama, throughout this country? What I want to convey to people who criticize those who travel like I do, and my wife and I, that's a calling that God gave us. That's something that He put on our hearts a long time ago. But this is my point. If you don't travel and build relationship, there will come a time there will be a virus, a disease called COVID that will visit you. And because of the lack of relationship that we had in Asia and throughout the world, from the leadership of the Oval Office, because of that, not having relationships where we could have curtailed this terrible experience of COVID-19, the virus, the disease that has killed over 550,000 Americans, not to mention worldwide. Had we had the relationship, because when I was in Moscow, Russia, my eyes came open when former President Mikhail Gorbachev said, Steele, we should be concerned about all of the citizenry of the world, not just Europe, or Russia, or the continent of Africa, or just North America, or United States of America. We should understand there's a global village. We're living in a global village. And our people don't understand that. What happens around the world within a matter of not hours, a few seconds, will come to America. What are they talking about now, Mr. Eden? They talking about a missile, a satellite that might fall from the space system. And who sent it up to space several years ago? China.
China.
Now, how are you going to direct the missile from America and it went up from China and you don't know where it's going to land? So all of the citizenry of the world must collaborate, because we don't want to fall on China. We don't want to fall on Ukraine. We don't want to fall nowhere or no other country or continent in this world. That means the global village must collaborate.
Education. Speaking of that, on that note, On that note, again, you are a big fan of the University of Alabama and its football team, but you also know about Alabama State. There are many who are criticizing the fact that in this year's NFL draft, no HBCU football player was drafted in the NFL. You've heard those criticisms. Your thoughts on that?
I think it's really ridiculous because I know there are some good athletes in the HBCU colleges. But I want to give credence also to Alabama State University. 2 years ago, they got a first-round draft pick, young man who started out, I understand, as a quarterback. But when he got to Alabama State, they turned him into offensive lineman. And he grew into that position and made it. He was drafted number 1. That was 2 years ago. Now, what I'm saying is that we must understand that African-American athletes must be recruited and also educated to the fact that you have people like Deion Sanders and
Yes.
other coaches that's leaving the NFL after their retirement, and they're committed to the HBCU institutions.
Right.
Not to criticize the systemic racism within this country as much as to educate our people from the Pop Warner League, Little League football, all the way to middle school. You got to educate them to the importance. You might not be on TV, but if you're a good athlete, they'll find you.
Fine, yes,
And
sir.
the families and extended family members and the community and neighbors, we have a responsibility to educate them. So we can't put it all on the systemic racism that's taking place. I remember the day when Grambling University had more black athletes or more athletes in the NFL than Notre Dame. And I think overall Notre Dame had more NFL players than anyone. But it was
Still
the
does.
education. And still does.
Right.
That's right. Notre Dame still has that number. But Grambling at one point was right there with Notre Dame. My point is, yes, I'm the first to say systemic racism has really taken this toll on us as a race. But we also have a responsibility to educate and not be hung up on the Saturday afternoon or the Friday night or Thursday night now being on national TV, because you have a responsibility to keep the prestige of academic and athletics at HBCUs. But our young athletes, male and female, must be educated to that fact. Because guess what? If you're good, they're going to find you.
They're going to find you.
They're going to
Dr.
find
Steele, you're good. You're good at this, that's for sure. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been SCLC Today TV with our president, Dr. Charles Steele Jr., focusing on education this week in many forms. Take care.